Okay, and welcome back to another lesson in Mr. Halpin's online YouTube GCSE History lesson size. Okay, so this lesson is now going to be looking at Germany, lesson 2. And what it's looking at is we're looking at the final problem caused by World War One. Okay? For Germany, obviously. So we looked at 3 yesterday, and then we're going to look at the final one today, the one that's really, really important. But again, no lesson is complete without a little bit of revision or recall. So let's try and answer these questions. Okay, these ones here are based on the Germany topic, so the one that we just started the other day. This one's about Elizabeth, this one's Crime and Punishment, this one's USA, because obviously I don't know who's there watching this at home. This could be a year 11 who's doing his final revision, or this could be a year 10 who's only just started Germany. So do the questions that apply to you. I'll go through them in just a second. Pause it to give yourself a chance to actually answer them. Make sure you've obviously got a pen and paper. Off you go. Okay, so the answers are, for the first 3 problems, we've got no leader. This pen is absolutely awful. Let's get a blue. So no leader, debt, huge amounts of debt they owed, and no agreement. So politically arguing over what's going to happen. Who lost World War One? Germany. How many soldiers died? 2 million. Let's jump to Elizabeth. So what did Elizabeth do to increase her reputation? So you can talk about royal progresses. Basically, she went around the country showing off how wealthy, how rich, how important she was. But I'm not bitter about this. She never went to Wales or the north. So she just didn't think anywhere that I've lived is important enough. And don't worry, Elizabeth, I'm not taking that personally, but it's just a bit rude. So royal progresses. She also had paintings drawn. In a way, you could sort of see these as early propaganda. These are an early version of propaganda. So what was an Elizabeth form of entertainment? You could talk about bear baiting. This is where bears fought. You could talk about theatre. Talk about cockfighting here. That means cockles the chicken, not nothing else. What were MPs not allowed to discuss? MPs were not allowed to discuss religion or her marriage, or her marriages, or potential marriages, because she never got married. USA, who was attacked by communists? That was our main man, Mitchell Palmer. And then he arrested and deported 6,000 because he was so upset. How were Native Americans treated? You could say awfully, but the key word I'd like you to get in here is assimilation. So what that meant is they were poorly treated and then forced to become like white Americans. They were forced to become Christians, forced to learn English, forced to dress shirt and tie instead of the native spiritual dress that they used to wear. What led organised criminals to organised criminals like Al Capone, prohibition. Okay, so they ban alcohol, and then basically ban alcohol, and then Mr. Halpin still would like to get himself a little bit of whiskey because he does love whiskey. Where am I going to get it? Because I can't buy it off anyone. Well, I'm going to have to buy it off a criminal. Think of it like an illegal drugs trade. So these people start selling alcohol, and then they say, "Whoa, I'm quite good at this crime business. Let's go do a bit more crime. Yeah, I fancy this." Obviously, don't become criminals, though. That's bad. What trials did Justice of the Peace use? You could talk about trial by combat and trial by ordeal. So this is when one of them would fight, and if you won the fight, you were innocent. Or this is when you'd sort of put your hand in a boiling pot of water, and if you came out and you didn't get infected, well, great, you're innocent. If it was infected after a couple of days, guilty. So quite glad that's not in place now. What's a change in responsibility? We have watchmen, and then we have Charlies who take over. So these are people who are actually paid by the government. So this is the start of the government taking over from the community. Because before this, remember, we've got tithings, hundreds. These were created because towns got bigger, and if you've got a bigger town with more people in it, you're going to need someone who's slightly better at the job. What was the first form of rehabilitation? You could talk about the houses of correction in the early modern period. Okay, for vagrants. Alright, well, let's get cracking then. So, bet you can't wait for Germany. Now remember how to make your notes. Key ideas here, notes here. So we're going to do this for the main part of the lesson, this at the end, and then summary. You're going to come up with an idea of what you think is the main part of the lesson a few days later. Alright, so now the fourth problem that we looked at is this feeling of, or the fourth one that we're going to look at today is feeling betrayed. Now, Germany lose the war. And as with everything, they want someone to blame. Okay? They need to blame someone because it's just human nature. We do it all the time. Even with them. So at the moment, I'm filming these because of coronavirus. At the moment, we're still trying to pick someone to blame for coronavirus. Well, sometimes things aren't necessarily that easy. You can't just blame one person. There are many factors coming into place, but it's easier to blame one person, and that's what we're going to see today. So they're going to blame one group, and that's going to cause a myriad of problems. So feeling betrayed, I like to think of being betrayed as being stabbed in the back. So this is what this picture here is drawing. This person's really gutted because he's just been stabbed in the back by what looks like the world's longest or worst dagger. This person's rather happy because they are quite clearly a nutter. Alright, so Germany lose. Now, Germany lose, but that's not the full picture, because we've got this thing called propaganda. Now, propaganda is a way of persuading people to believe the same thing as you, or believe something you want them to believe. Often it's to do with politics. So me just trying to persuade you that I'm right isn't quite propaganda, but if I keep repeating the same messages and I try to get you to believe the same politics as me, that is propaganda. So, for instance, what was happening in Germany at the time, so at home in Germany, is you'd have all these posters. So you'd have pictures of soldiers winning. You know, people would say, oh, another victory, we're winning again, we're winning, victory is close, we're going to win soon, don't worry, we're going to win, we're going to win. Imagine if this is told to you all the time. They started thinking, we're winning. People at home genuinely thought they were going to win. Right, now this is really, really important, because at this time, you haven't got that TV, very few people have radios, so the only place you're going to find your information is either in a newspaper or on posters like this. Now, guess who controls the newspapers? Yeah, the government. So everything you're reading is created by the government. Are the government ever going to say, oh, we're losing this war, it doesn't look good? No, they're not. So they were constantly saying they're winning, and the people at home thought they were winning. Alright, now, what I would like you to do is I would like you to answer these two questions here. What did German people think about the war? And I would like you to try and define propaganda. Okay? So pause it, give yourself a chance to just answer those questions. Alright, so German people thought they were winning. Okay? They were starving. They were going through tough times, but they thought this was all helping them win. So they thought they were winning. And define propaganda, being persuaded to change your beliefs, often political. Okay, now, why is this really, really important? Well, what happens on the 9th of November? What happens on the 9th of November? And what, yeah, let's go with. So what happens on the 9th of November, and why does that happen? Why does that happen? Pause it to give yourself a chance to think. Okay, well, what happens if I told you this person's name was Kaiser? Does that help? Okay, so the Kaiser, Wilhelm, remember the leader of Germany, resigns, gives up his job, runs away. Why does he do this? Why does he do this? Come up with 3 reasons. Come up with 3 reasons. So, Germany is starving. People are dying on the streets. Remember, 1917 equals turnip winter, because that's all they were eating, turnips. I'm not a big fan of turnips, so I would have hated that. then again, I suppose they're probably not thinking about Mr. Halperin this time. Quite rude, to be honest. So Germany's starving, huge amounts of death. They owe loads of people loads of money, and people are dying. So 2 million soldiers were dying. Okay. Look at that beautiful handwriting. Right, now what I'd like to think, this has happened, right? The Kaiser's left because of all these things. What are you going to do? Imagine you're now in charge of Germany. What are you going to do? Think about the war. What's causing Germany's problems? Have a think. Yes, what are you going to do? Are you going to continue the war, stop the war? What are you going to do? Well, at the time, what they did is they wanted peace. They knew that they were in debt because they were buying weapons and paying soldiers that they didn't have the money for. They knew they were starving because Britain wasn't letting any food into the country because they were at war with them, and all the food had to be sent to the soldiers, and soldiers dying. Well, it's because of the war. So they thought, no-brainer, let's make peace. Even people in the army were saying, let's make peace. Now, what they did is they signed something called the Armistice. Now, this is just, as usual, a posh word for peace agreement. Okay? Peace agreement. Now, this is why, on the 11th of November, on the 11th hour, so 11 o'clock on the 11th, we have a minute or 2 minute silence. Right? This is why. It's because of the end of World War I. Now, fighting actually still happened up until that point. Right? Some people actually died like 10 minutes later. Okay, now, think back to what was happening in Germany. Remember, they're going through propaganda thinking we're winning, and then, boom, Kaiser leaves, peace agreement, we've lost, no Kaiser, everything's going wrong. Their whole life has changed. They've gone from thinking they're winning to knowing they've lost. So all those 2 million soldiers were for nothing because they lost. Turnip war and the starving for nothing. People don't mind in countries going through hard times if they know it's for a good reason. So, for instance, coronavirus. I'm in quarantine at the moment. I can't leave my house, but I don't mind because I know that I'm doing it to save everyone else and to help everyone, so I'm not spreading the disease. Imagine if I found out tomorrow that this was all rubbish, that this was just a way of keeping people in their house and away from other things. I'd be going crazy. I'd be furious. It's because they don't mind going through hard times if it's for something. So now it's for nothing. They didn't even win the war. They're furious. Now, who are the Germans going to blame? Have a think. Pause it. Who are the Germans going to blame? Who do you think? Right, if you were struggling to think there, you could think about the army or the new leaders of Germany. Or the Kaiser, you could say. Right, so these are 3 people they could blame. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more information to give you a little bit more of an idea of who do you think is going to blame. So, the state of Germany at the moment, or the state of the war, World War I, bear in mind this is right at the end of the war, so let's say the 11th of the 11th. Kaiser's just left. They're fighting in France and Belgium. They're fighting here. France is here, Germany's here. Not actually fighting in Germany. Up until the peace agreement, the soldiers are still fighting. Even about 10 minutes after, they're still fighting. So the soldiers are still fighting. They're still trying to win the war. No enemy, the British and the French, never marched into Germany. They never marched into Germany. They never took over. They never pointed a gun at a German civilian and said, we're now in charge. That never happened. So, have a think about these questions here. Did the army lose a final battle? Did they lose a final battle that would mean that the whole of Germany is controlled? Well, no, they didn't, because they were still fighting up until the peace agreements. They were still fighting. So, no, they didn't. So who are the people going to blame? Who are the people going to blame? Are they going to blame the army or the leaders of Germany? who signed the agreement. Well, yeah, that's who they blamed. They said the army haven't done anything wrong, the army have tried their best. But these leaders, they gave up. They surrendered. Gave up. And they actually went further than that. People in Germany thought the leaders of Germany stabbed the army in the back, betrayed the army. Sorry, my big fat left hand will get out of the way now. So stabbed in the back, betrayed the army, and my left hand's going to get in the way, and betrayed the country. Right, so this myth of being stabbed in the back is basically saying the army's been betrayed, the country's been betrayed. Now, could they have continued the war? Could Germany have continued the war? Have a think about that question. Could they have continued the war? No, they couldn't. Okay. Right, 2 million dead. Debt. Starving army. Plus people. The Navy had actually gone on strike, so the Navy weren't actually fighting anymore, they'd given up. And even the army were saying peace, wanted peace. The army were actually wanting peace as well. So, did they actually stab the army in the back, or did they do what was just right for Germany? Yeah, they did what was right for Germany. So what we call this a myth. It's not true. The army weren't stabbed in the back by the leaders of Germany, but enough people believe it. So people believe it. Now, if enough people believe something, it does have power. So, for instance, what can we think? Manchester United are the best team in the world. I know that's true. I believe that's true. Thousands and millions of people around the country believe that's true. So they turn up and watch them. It's not true. They're awful. Alright? But people still turn up, still gives them money. So the fact people believe something still gives something power. So if, for instance, if people think that the leaders of Germany stabbed the army in the back, even though it's not true, if they think that, that is going to have an impact on Germany. And what I'd like you to do in this question here is have a think about that. So I would like to describe the stab in the back myth. So I'd like you to tell me what it is, why did it come about, why is it a problem for the future? Alright, that question is a 5 marker in the exam, so it should take you 5 minutes. Alright, so pause it, give yourself 5 minutes to answer it, and then we'll go through it in a second. Off you pop. And we're back. Great. Right, so I should really get like a pause sign. Pause. What is it? It's when the leaders of Germany were accused of betraying the army. Okay, that's what it is. Why did it come about? They signed an armistice to stop the war. And then why? Well, debt, no leader, starving, and death. Okay, that's what you need to mention there. So that's this. Now, why is it a problem for Germany? Well, we're going to have a look. There is a famous man we're going to look at in the next couple of lessons, but we'll have a look at him first here. And that man is old Hitler. Now, Hitler is actually a captain in the army at the end of World War I. He loves the army. Now, he actually gets shot and goes into hospital. So imagine him now. He gets shot. He loves his army. He loves his country. He gets shot. And he wakes up, ready to go back to war. And then he finds out that the army aren't fighting anymore. It's like, why? I love the army. We would have kept going. I know we would have kept going. And then he finds out this new group, these new leaders of Germany, have given up. They've stabbed him, Germany, and the army in the back. They've betrayed the army. He's got a bit of anger issues, So they must pay. Rah! He's furious. He is going to make life difficult for the government. He is going to try and take over. So he's going to try and take over the government. He's going to constantly be blaming the government. Anytime they do anything, they're like, well, you stabbed the army in the back. You did this, you did that. And we're also going to look at, he blames Jewish people for this as well. Because there were 2 Jewish people in the new government, and he blames them. Alright, so that's why this is going to cause a problem. Anytime the government do anything wrong, Hitler's going to be on the case. You stabbed him in the back, you stabbed him in the back, how dare you? You don't deserve to be the leaders. So he's going to try and take over. Other people are going to be unhappy because of this, and they're going to try and take over. So it's going to make life really, really difficult for the government. Alright, now, just so we don't forget anything, I would like you to list the 4 problems caused by war. Actually, let's go have a go at all these questions, right? I would like you to list the 4 problems caused by war. Which one has the longest impact? Which one has the most important impact in the short term? And then I would like you to just make sure that you know what the armistice, propaganda and stab in the back myth by defining them quickly. Try to do it in about 30 words or less. You can even draw a picture from them as well. Look at me, art, cross-curricular there. Boom, smashed it. Alright, pause it, give yourself a chance. That should probably take you about 6.5 minutes. Right, this is why I need to pause it because I'm just going to race through these. Right, no leader. Debt. Political disagreements. So people are arguing, not knowing what to do. If they don't know what to do, can they fix any of these? No. And stab in the back. Feeling betrayed. Oh, quickly, forgot to mention something. Even the best people do it. What they start calling these leaders of Germany is they call them November criminals. So criminals because they've done something bad. November because it was signed on the 11th, remember? The armistice is on the 11th. So they call them criminals because they've done something wrong. November because it's in November. So that's what they're constantly calling them. So we've got the fact, no leader, debt, political disagreement, stab in the back. Now which one has the longest impact? This is however you argue it, but what I'd probably say is the stab in the back. Because Hitler's always going to come down to it. This is the thing that's going to make Germany argue with their government. So in the next few lessons we're going to look at 3 people who try and take over the country. And in some way it's because of this that they're able to. They're able to say, you stabbed them in the back, you don't deserve to be the leaders. Which one's got the most important impact in the short term? I'd probably say it's no leader. Because if there's a leader, you don't have this. And if it's the Kaiser, you don't have this either. Okay, so I'd probably say no leader, but you could easily say no debt. Okay, because debt could lead to no leader. Right. Armistice. So, draw a picture. I would have just drawn that for peace. So the peace agreement. Propaganda. Persuading people to change their minds, remember, change their opinions. So you could draw a political poster there. Look at that drawing and stab in the back. November criminals. Army giving up. Army being told to give up. And then you could draw the stabbing of the actual person. Oh my god, this drawing is awful. This drawing is a work of art though, so I'll draw something like that. Okay, now quickly, so we don't forget everything, what I'd like to do is make sure that you've completely filled these notes in. So pause these now, give yourself a chance to add anything you can. This is how I'd have done it. Alright, now what I'd like you to do, cover this up and try to come up with like 6 keywords to summarise everything we've learned. So for instance, here my first notes would have been propaganda, Germany thought they were winning, boom. What I can do now is transfer that, 1 keyword to sum that up, propaganda. Alright, so come up with 6 keywords to help you remember this. If you were going to boil this down to 6 words, what would they be? And put them here. Now, after that, what I'd like you to do is, a couple of days later, I would like to fill out this summary. So come up with 2 points that summarise everything you've learned in this lesson in about 2 days' time. Okay, so thank you very much. That has been a privilege and a pleasure as always. Right, on to the next one. See ya.